Well, hold on, Chris. I'm not the one presenting. I understand that, but I need to have somebody I can see and talk to on the other end. So I need you to be present with me, and I promise you the time will serve you very well. Before we get started now, I wanted to kick off just to say a big shout out. Thank you to everybody on our team that's here today helping facilitate, make sure that this happens for you and for the industry. As I said earlier, I've been in the industry now for about 28 years. I owned and operated an electrical service company here in the market that I operate. We had 5 locations across the state, and we did pretty good at business. And I'm here to share that information with you today with no obligation. So I want to be really clear that I said that to you. Today, I'm here to share with you with no obligation. So I don't want you to feel like you're obligated to do anything just by being here, other than do yourself the favor and disconnect from everything else in the business so that we can take you on this journey. The Blue Collar Success Group literally exists to be able to help contractors build and grow their business. Once again, let me evidence that to you over the next 2 hours of how we can help make an impact in your business. Our team works with HVAC, plumbing, electrical companies all over North America, Canada, and even in Australia. And we help those businesses grow through coaching and through training in our tools and resources. Enough about me. I want to take an opportunity to take you on this journey today. You guys ready? So open up the chat. This is how we'll know if you're ready or not. I want you to open up the chat and with one word, just one, explain how you feel about your day today. One word, hopeful. Thank you, Danetta. Awesome. There's one person out there. Yeah, energized. Thank you, Dawn, for that. Pump, fantastic. Fantabulous. Ben, thank you. Great.
Excited.
Hungry, grateful, buried, great. Buried, I hope in a good way, by the way, James. Good to see you, brother. Ready, productive, ready. Yes, yes, yes. Anybody else out there? Yes, surprised. Okay, cool. Awesome. One word to describe how you're feeling today. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Make sure that if I could just get a thumbs up from anybody on my team here that would recognize that the screen share has been enabled and started, and you guys can see that. Is that correct? Perfect. Thank you so very much for that. I appreciate that. And we're going to get rock and rolling here today. 2 hours of your time, 4 o'clock Eastern. I'm going to go ahead and get my iPhone out. That's how I keep track of time. And I've got 4:06. So let's give it all we got for the next hour and 54 minutes. Deal? I'm going to give you my very best for the next hour and 54 minutes. If you can do me a favor and make sure you stay here, stay engaged. I want to really kind of get it kicked off by just making a general blanket statement. I don't want you to feel like I'm coming at you. And for those that don't know me, I can be very animated at times, which means I might come across a little upset or angry with you. Don't confuse that with passion. I'm super passionate about the industry. I might get a little elevated as we get on topics that get me fired up and excited. I want to start off by just simply saying this. No business is immune to low profits. There's no immunity to this. There's no one thing that you can do to guarantee you're never going to have low profits. It's a consistent effort inside of a business as we build. And I know that low profits can run very rampant in our industry. And when I use the word low profits, I'm talking about single digits. And I'm saying to you today, if you're on this call today and you're an owner or you're a manager, your business should be turning double-digit profits. Our clients experience very healthy double-digit profits when they implement and they execute on the systems and the processes. As a part of that, I also want to say that the business must be managed. There is absolutely no replacement for management. There's nothing that you can do that will replace yourself unless you're replacing yourself with another person. So people are going to continue to need to be involved as we manage the business. When we look at today, no matter how financial acumen that you have, whether you're a CPA or not, today you're going to find either new strategies that are going to help you in the business that you can go implement, or you're going to leave here with more confidence that you're on the right track and you're on the right path. So when we look at as a high level, we're going to talk revenue minus direct cost equal gross margin. I want you to remember this, and we're going to dig into what exactly direct costs are today. And I'm going to uncover a few truths today that I think will be very liberating for you as a manager or owner. So the first question we have to ask, what exactly causes businesses to not earn a profit? Well, there's several reasons why a business might not make money. And I want you to remember this, and I want you to write this down right now. Write this down. Profit does not equal cash. For those that are on right now, profit does not equal cash, which means at the end of the month, when I get out my income statement and I'm reading through my income statement, and I see a number at the bottom, guarantee you that number is not in the bank. That number is not representative of the number that's in the bank, simply because the income statement is a scorecard and a roll-up of all of the activities of the business. However, some of those activities are balance sheet items, so they may not be reflected in the income statement, and that's why profit does not equal cash. So because of that, we got to look, well, okay, could a business earn profit and not have cash flow? Absolutely. In fact, I've seen businesses that earn a profit on the bottom line, but simply struggle to pay the bills. And we can talk a little bit about why that is in a later training. But I want to say to you that today is about the fundamentals of the business. There's going to be no magic bullet. There's probably not going to be brand new information for you. I'm just going to share it with you in a way that is different than maybe you've ever heard it before. I'm a simplifier. I like to break things down real simple so that we can all really wrap our minds around it. Just to be clear, I have 1 semester of accounting under my belt. I say this all the time. I only have 1 semester of accounting under my belt, and I realized real quick, I do not want to do this for a living. So I quit going on that route. No harm to my accounting folks out there. Everybody needs you and we love you. And that's why we appreciate having folks like you on our team that do the things that you are good at. Here's 4 reasons. You ready? I want you to write them down. Number 1, not priced correctly. And not being priced correctly is the number 1 thing that we always want to look at, is being priced correctly. So when I find out that margins are off or profit is off, it starts with, let's go look at how you price your services. Number 2, not managing the direct cost. I can't tell you the numerous times if I open up an income statement and I start at sales and I'm going to review it, as soon as I get down to gross margin, I can tell you right now, I can tell you exactly what the profit will be without even looking at the overhead. It's going to be slim or it's potentially going to be strong. Most businesses don't struggle at too high of overhead. Most of them don't. Most of them struggle with margins. Margins are their biggest struggle. And that's the reason why we're bringing to you this muscling up your margins, driving a stronger profit. Number 3, though, is low sales. So not making a profit could be I have too low of sales because I have high overhead. And you can't, I want you to remember this, you can't outsell your direct cost. Let me say that again. You can't outsell your direct cost, and I'm going to share with you the reason why. However, you can outsell your overhead, but if you can't manage the direct cost, it makes it more difficult to outsell your overhead. So those are the 4 reasons. Number 1, not priced correctly. We're going to cover that today. Not managing direct costs. We are going to cover that today. Low sales and high overhead, we're not going to cover those. We're going to focus on those top 2. So I'd like to get started by saying this. As an operator, you need to know your numbers. There's just simply not an excuse for you. I'm going to give you some tough love right now. I don't do it that often. I'm usually not that rough and that hard. But I just want to say to you, you got to know your numbers. What numbers do I need to know, Chris? Well, KPI numbers are important as well. But today we're talking financial numbers. What you got to know your financial numbers. If you're an operator, it would be like flying an airplane with no instruments. Just by looking at the horizon and seeing where you're headed. Well, the sun's there. We must be headed west. Well, you're going to be directionally correct when you do that. But if you plan on landing that plane in Los Angeles versus San Diego, you got to know what's going on, especially if I'm leaving from the East Coast. I've got to make sure that I'm on course and I'm heading toward that direction, because being off course, the longer that I stay off course, the more detriment it can be to my profitability, meaning that every month I want to be looking at my income statement. I'm wanting to do a review. For those that are waiting for their accountant to do their review with them, I hope today to be able to at least impart enough information, knowledge, and wisdom to you today that you would feel comfortable in making it a must for you. I'm curious right now. Can I get a commitment? Type it in the box right now. At least I can get a commitment from you today that you're going to, today moving forward, the one thing, even if you're already doing it, yes, Chris, 100% committed. Are you committed to digging into your numbers every month in your income statement? Type it in the box. If you're a hundo, then type it in. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Danetta. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about because that's really where it's at. It helps us to start understanding our numbers. And the more that we understand our numbers, the more we start understanding the drivers of this business. Yeah, I see many of you that I know you're very adamant about the income statement. And I will say that the income statement doesn't always tell the full story. It's just one of the financial reports that we need to keep an eye on. And when we talk about looking and knowing our, yeah, thank you for everybody that's got that committed to the numbers, committed to the numbers. Yes, I'm 100%. As a part of that, I'm going to say this. Some people run the business by the checkbook. And running the business from the checkbook is not managing margins. Yes, of course, we can see how much money's in the bank and we can see what we pay our suppliers and we can see what I understand that concept, but that doesn't mean that you're running the business by the numbers when you run it by the checkbook. And this is something that I know doesn't set well with folks. And I'm not here to be popular today. I'm here just to be very upfront with you. And that's being good at your trade does not mean that you will make money. Being a good electrician, being a good plumber, and being a good HVAC company doesn't mean that you're going to make money. It goes back to managing costs. So I want to create some level set today. There's two types of costs that can be done. Number one is a variable cost. A variable cost is a number on your income statement that you manage by the percentage, not by the dollar figure. Meaning as sales go up, this number as a dollar figure goes up, but percentage should stay the same. The second component is a fixed cost. And I know I'm talking elementary right now. Don't leave. Don't believe that you're not getting good stuff. I've got to level set to make sure we're all speaking the same language. A fixed number on your income statement or a fixed cost is a number that you manage by the dollar figure, not by the percentage. A great example of that would be if you rent your building. Doesn't matter how much you sell, the rent's still the same. You've got to pay that same dollar figure. So the concept there is when you outsell your overhead, you can lower that percentage of overhead, therefore driving a better profitability. Well, how do we do that, Chris? Once again, it goes back to managing margin. So the question that we would have to ask ourselves is, what is a good margin? In fact, I don't want to expose anybody, but where do you think where's some places we could go to get answers to this question? We'll sit down for a minute. Somebody type it in the box. Where's somewhere we can go to find out what a good margin is? No right or wrong answers here. Type it in the box, okay? Yeah. Oh well, Danetta, there you go. Danetta nailed it. She was like to our coach. Yep. Okay. All right. Thank you for that, coaches. Blue collar. Yep. I see for all of our members are like, yep. Mixed groups, right? So franchise. Okay. Thank you for that, Jim. Anybody else? Where can we go? Blue collar. Yeah. And I don't want to be clear on this. It's not a position where you got to go to blue collar. But here's the challenge. All of us said something different. And I hear this question a lot in our industry. I hear, what is a good, yeah, Facebook groups, support groups. Thank you, Michael. What is a good margin? And here's what I want to say this. Until we can all speak a universal language, you can't really supply a good answer because what might be a good margin to somebody else is a different margin than somebody else. I'm going to show you what I mean by this. It's about comparing apples to apples when we talk about the word margin. And so when we compare apples to apples and not apples to oranges, we have the ability to speak a universal language. And I've learned that not everybody categorizes their P&L the same. And so because of that, makes it very difficult to answer the question. It's very ambiguous. What is a good margin? If I said to you today, 80% is a good margin, you'll say, wow, I've never even gotten close to that. We're happy to get 40. Well, I don't know what 40 is. Everything is all relative. Just so if I said to you today, hey, what is warm water? What is the temperature of warm water? Well, it depends on what you're accustomed to. right? What exactly is warm water? What is hot water? What is cold water? Everything is relative to what I'm accustomed to. So for today's purpose, I want you to do me a favor. Can we at least all agree on a universal language? Would you guys at least give me a thumbs up if you agree with a universal language? Like this is, hey, we're going to talk the same language today so that we can get to the same answers. Thank you, Tony, for that. So the first thing that I use is gross sales minus discounts, coupons, and allowances equals net sales. That's the number that we're dealing with. That's the first thing we'll talk about. This is the one we really need to stack hands on today. And when I say stack hands on, meaning, yeah, thank you, Jim, for that. I appreciate that. We're going to thumbs up it here. When we use the word above the line, this is everything that's quote above the line. Field labor, not loaded. Look, if you're on today and you want to argue with why it needs to be loaded, then I'm not here to argue. Like, I'm not here to present my case. I'm just telling you for universal purposes today so that we can all learn, we need to agree on this. It's field labor, material, equipment, permits. Let me back up. What exactly is material? Material that is bought, that is used to provide service for a customer. It's installed at homes. Equipment. If you track separately your material and equipment, it might be broken out, but you might not track that separately. In that case today, material and equipment may be the same line item. That is okay. Permits are job-related permits. These are permits that we pull with our local municipalities to ensure that we're in compliance with the regulatory rules that have been set forth by the municipality. Then subcontractors. Subcontractors could be things like a crane. Maybe we need a crane to install a generator or a crane to install a rooftop unit. It might be it could be that we hire somebody to dig ditches for our new lines. Maybe it's pouring concrete. Maybe it's a landscaper. I think you get the drift. Yes, Jim, commission spiffs is a part of cost of goods. Yes, and those would be, once again, I'm going to lump those into field labor. Okay, I'm not going to break out commissions, spiffs, and bonuses. So for practical purposes, it's a great question. We will count field labor, all wages as it relates to field labor. Then we've got equipment rental. Maybe I rented the equipment myself and my team is going to leverage that equipment to install and perform work at a particular customer. So all of these are above the line. If you agree with me today on this, for today's purposes, for the time that we're together, just type in ATL, means above the line. ATL. If you agree, ATL. And of course, might throw a little Freudian slip in there. I might be from the ATL originally, so I'm not going to lie. When I put that in here, I was like, this is going to be fun because y'all are saying above. Yeah, Bill Sweeney, good to see you, buddy. Above the line, yes, for sure. So strong margins start repricing, and I'm gonna give you practical methodology today around how to price your services, and then we're gonna run some exercise around. I see this all the time in the industry, and I want to make sure that I create clarity for everybody because I see it all the time. That's right, St. Paul. So the 3 ways to price your services. Number 1 is cost plus pricing. So I can say whatever my cost is plus, right? I can add 10%, 5%, whatever I look at. The second thing is I can create pricing through competitors' pricing. Whatever my competitor charges, I might say, hey, I'm going to charge 10% less, or hey, I'm going to charge 10% more. However you want to go about that. The third way is perceived value to the customer. At this point, this is where I charge my services based on the price that I need to be profitable, and I do so in a manner that creates value for the customer. And so I want to say to you today, if you could pick any of those 3 is the number you want to go with, and I'm going to show you how to do that today, okay? Before we get going, though, I can't not mention how service agreements cut into profits if it's not calculated. So example for you today, if you're on the line or you're watching this live, if you're watching this as a recording, please, you can go back and take notes on this as well. Service agreements in many cases, and I'm curious, how many people you in your service agreements, you offer a discount to your service agreement customers? Type it in the box if as a part of your service agreement you offer discounts. Okay. All right, cool. So I'm actually getting some numbers in, some yeses, some yeses, some yeses. I'm super, okay, cool. A lot of yeses. Okay, so we're on the right path. Let me just stop, and I want to stop screen share. Okay. All right, so here's what we typically see. Sydney, if you can do me a favor and spotlight this for a moment. We can price a job out, and let's just say that we go out to a job, and that job is $1,000, all right? And we sell this job, and our margins are strong, and our net profit on this job, we dial in at 20% or $200, right? However, in this scenario, I give my customer a 10% discount. And in this particular scenario of giving my customer a 10% discount minus 10% off the top means now that customer only pays me $900 to do that job. Well, based on the profitability of that company, now when I look at that, I may not be a net 20% here. And the reason why is because when I'm calculating my billable hour, we're going to talk about this in just a moment. When I'm calculating my billable hour at the net profit that I desire, let's just say in a percentage on this job, I wanted to be at the $200 that equals the 20%, but I'm giving away 10% on the top up here. What needs to happen is I arrive at the profitability that I want, and then I do a plus on that. It actually needs to be factored in to make sure that your best customers are not costing you profit. Well, I understand the theory there, which is, hey, if they're an existing customer, we want to give them a good deal so they'll keep coming back. But the problem is you can't do so at the expense of the profitability of the company and say, well, on average, it will work itself out to, here's what I want you to write down. I want you to imagine that if your company desires to be at that 20% and you're going to give that discount, I want you in the mindset of this. I'm not saying this to be greedy, but the way that I position my business on the pricing is every customer that doesn't want to get a service agreement from my company, they're actually going to have to pay me more than I need because I need my service agreement base helping me become strong and profitable. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that we see when it comes to building out prices because they try to use all these law of averages and all this stuff. Like, it's very simple. If my existing customers pay me 20% less, it cuts into my profit. Bottom line, it doesn't matter how you slice it. You can argue with the math and create all of the pie charts and graphs you want. It's just that simple. When you give away 10% off the top line, it will cut into your profitability. And the reason why is because it's going to cut into your margins. And I want you to remember that. Why in the world do I want my best customer paying me the least amount of profit? If that is the case, service agreement customers are bad for our business. Yes, of course, they're going to create repeat business. And yes, of course, they're going to give us built-in service call. Yes, of course, they're going to be paying us monthly or annually or what, all the things we tell ourselves. I'm saying to you today, if you're on the call today and you have not factored in service agreement pricing into your profitability, this is going to be one of your takeaways today. So I want you to think about that for a moment. I'm going to hop back in now that I got off that soapbox. Make sure that we calculate. Now, there's nothing to be said about doing the hard work. You and I got to go do the hard work. And so today, to do the hard work, I'm going to share with you, and I want you to remember this. The formula that I'm about to share with you today is a minimum billable hour. Your business may need to charge more, but this is a minimum. Let me repeat so that you don't, I don't want you leaving here today and be like, Chris said I need to go charge. No, that's not what I said. I said this is the minimum number. So if you're on today, when does this apply? If you're on today and you've not made good decisions in the business in the past, and because we see it, businesses come to us and they're like, we don't really have clean financials. Okay, well, let's not base our business and our pricing based off of bad information. Let's at least set it at the minimum and see how that starts working as we do this. So today, the formula that I'm going to share with you is kind of an industry standard around this, and I'm not going to get into the complexity. It'd take me about 3 hours to teach you all the logic behind it. But when I say this is a formula that's been around for 20 plus years. So this isn't new, okay? Here's a snapshot of what it looks like. This is everything that goes into that minimum billable hour. It's going to start, and I'm going to walk you through this formula in a real-time scenario, but this is everything that goes in the funnel. It's going to be the technician's base wages, and we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to factor in some productivity challenges because we know that we don't bill out every single hour. And then we've got labor and overhead that's attached to that labor, the overhead with it. And then we've got the overhead that's attached to the business. And we're going to build in our net profitability as well before taxes. And that's what helps us arrive at our minimum billable hour. Before we move on, I'm going to ask for a quick I need you all to participate in this chat. And you would either chat in TM or FR. TM is time and material. FR is flat rate. How do you price your services today? Type it in. Okay, so I get a lot of flat rate, flat rate, flat rate, flat rate, flat T&M. Okay, thank you for that T&M, flat rate, T&M, flat rate, T&M, flat rate, T&M, mix, but flat rate. Thank you for that, flat rate, flat rate, flat rate. Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to really disturb the nest today. We're all selling time and material. All of us are. That's all there is to sell. However, it's how you position to the client of what you sell. And so when we look at packaging our time and our material into that methodology of 3, thank you. Thank you, Robert. Yeah, formula that you were taught. Perfect. Mike with Eggers, good for you, man, for doing that as well. I'm going to share with you guys, if you'll allow me to, I'm going to go back to a screen share, and we're going to do some quick math, and I want to show you how to do this. And listen, by the way, if you're on today and you are time material, I want to be very clear. It doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. So don't. I was just in a social media post yesterday. Somebody posted a picture of an option sheet, and they were like, "What do you think about my new option sheet?" And all these people were, "Oh, you need a software, and you need this, and you need this." And I was like, "It's very simple. I could sell from a kitchen table with a blank piece of paper." Let me say that again. I could sell from a kitchen table with a blank piece of paper. And the reason why is because that form only enhances what I do. Software will only enhance what I do. But if you don't have the core principle fundamental to selling, it won't work. You can have the best software. No harm to software companies, but you can have the best software and have a horrible technician and it won't work. Selling at the kitchen table, this is a people business. Now I'm going to get on my soapbox. The reason why is because when it comes to packaging your pricing, this is how it works. So if you're a flat rate company and you're looking, I will tell you, I'm sorry, if you're a time and material company and you really want to look to build and grow your business, through the sales process, it will make it easier for you to drive higher tickets when you are focused on selling packages and bundled pricing. When you do time material, it makes it more difficult in the sales process. I'm not going to tell you it's impossible. You can do it, but there is an easier way. So if you're out there and you're T&M and you want to go flat rate, we can definitely help you with that. Just shoot me an email. We'll definitely get on a call and walk you through easy ways to transition that. But let's do this, okay? So I want to start with everything in a market. I want to say this, your cost of doing business, everything starts at the labor rate. What is the going labor rate in the market? And so you start with and for those that are like, we don't pay by the hour. I understand that. But hey, slow down, turbo, simmer down, hot sauce. I get people like, well, we don't do it that way. I understand. But if you're in a market and you have to go pay somebody by the hour, what is the top base wage for the most skilled technician in your market going to be? In this scenario, what you're going to see is $42. I'm just giving that as an example. $42 is the example. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to now take that $42 and we're going to multiply it times 1.15. And that is how we get the formula of the adjusted base wage, giving us the ability to pay more than the top technician in my market. So that number is going to come out to $48.30. Put a pin in that. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to make the assumption that my technicians are 50% productivity, which means if they work 8, I'm going to be able to bill out 4. Okay, so this goes to that whole, do we charge port to port? Do we charge, for those that are time material, you're building in your inefficiency because you're not able to bill out every single hour from port to port. So this creates that efficiency. Chris, what is the 50%? Is that the right answer? The answer is, if you don't know your number, start at 50. We have seen it where there are some inefficiency companies that are running more along the 35, 40%. If that's the case, then we adjust accordingly based on that. So it might not be 48.30, but might be more like 52.75, right? Could be $54. Then from there, we're going to add the labor overhead at 2.2. That brings us at 106.26. Once again, there's a whole formula. I can break it down for you. Just don't have the extra time to go into why this, but I'm going to show you why it works in a moment, and seeing will be believing for you. The next thing is we're going to now take the overhead, and all this is based at that 48.30, right? So now I'm going to take the business overhead at the 1.4. That gives me 67.62. And then my profit at 1.4, 67.62. I add the 48.30, 48.30, 106.26, 67.62, 67.62, and I arrive at a number that's 338.10. All right, so now I go, okay, now I've got a number, 338.10. But even if you got a fancy software, let me say this, doesn't matter your software, and I'm brand agnostic here. Now you got to go apply your billable hour to your services. So now I might open up my software and go click, 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 338.30, done. Not so fast, okay? In the best words of Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. And the reason why is because you and I are selling material and time. We've only solved the time equation right now. So from here, you've got to identify the services that you're going to offer and what material will be included with said service. So I'm going to give you an example today, real time, based on what we did here. I'm an electrician, so I chose an electrician task. Let's say I'm going to go into a home and I'm going to replace a 15 amp standard breaker. What does standard mean, Chris? Readily available on the shelf. I don't have to go special order it. I can go pick it up. It might even be on my van, right? It might be on my service vehicle. The cost of that material in this scenario would be $8.53. The time to install said breaker is 15 minutes. I'm not here to argue whether it's right or wrong. However, let me say this. This is where I see the biggest mistake. And I'm going to get on the soapbox for a minute, okay? I might be able to determine that, yes, my billable hour is 383.10. The challenge with that is the next component is this, okay? So I'm going to show you really quick. It's billable hour is X, right? Now, to ensure the billable hour doesn't mean anything if it's not applied to the price book correctly. So don't just go into your software, plug the number and be like, I'm set for profitability. Because now what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to make sure that task time is accurate, because in that scenario of 383.10, if I'm saying that my task time is a half hour, it's divided by this. But what if it was 45 minutes really? And I found that my technicians don't complete that task in 45 minutes, they complete it in an hour. When your task time is wrong, you can literally, in this scenario, if the task time was 1 hour, you're going to be at 383.10. However, if not, you're going to be somewhere around the 191. So I'm going to be $191.05 versus the 383. And so this is going to really, really impact your profitability because task time is not correct. Now, in this scenario, I went an hour versus a half hour. If I broke it down in 15-minute intervals, and I was off 15 minutes, I was too low 15 minutes on 50% of my task, This is an uphill battle to create profitability because you're not billing, and I want to make it logical. You're not billing out enough time on the task. And this goes back to the question I asked, are you flat rate or are you time material? And everybody's like, flat rate, flat rate, flat rate, flat rate. And I said, newsflash, you're still selling time material. Because of this concept, you've got to get the time for the task right when you're going to be flat rate. And let me say this, there are a lot of great flat rate softwares out there. There are a lot of great software companies out there. But I got to tell you, I'm going to trust, but I'm going to validate because I don't know who said let me give the industry standard to install a breaker is fill in the blank. I don't care. Like that's not for me to worry about. I'm going to make sure it's right for me and my business. And this is where you got to be careful to not get hung up in the trap of the amateur because most people go, well, it's probably close enough. Don't worry about it. And there's some quick things that we do here at Blue Collar and we teach our coaches to do where we export price books, we drop a tool in on top of it, and then we run a quick calculation on it to see, okay, is this company really priced correctly? In some cases, we see glaringly obvious. It has nothing to do with the billable hour. It has everything to do with task time. Take it from me. You got to go investigate the task time. So let me get back to the task at hand, if you would. Now what we're going to do from here is we're going to say, okay, the breaker costs $8.53. The markup we're going to do in this case is time 2, which is what I would consider to be an average markup. However, the lower cost, I want you to remember this, time out. The lower the cost of material, the higher the markup should be. And this is where you can really, really strengthen margins. So an example like this, I marked it up times 2. If I were operating today, I did this so I didn't scare people because this will freak some people out. On this particular task, I would have marked it up 3.5 times. I would have took that breaker that's $8.53 and I'd have multiplied it times 3.5. Let me say this, the extra 1.5 times I'm going to mark it up, your customer will not see that. They just simply will not feel that because it's the low cost of material. Now, once you get into higher price and you try to mark it up that heavily, you're going to start getting a lot of price complaints. You're going to be, you guys charge a lot of money because of this one thing and the other. And it also is an axis of time and material. So super labor intensive jobs, you can mark up the material higher as well. But if it's super material intensive, low labor, you can't mark the material up as high to get the margins. And so there is no one size fits all, apply this and be done. However, the rule of thumb is material times 2. Okay, once you get into high priced equipment, water heaters, electrical panels, definitely condenser units, there's a whole nother pricing formula around this. I'm helping you to price your services today. Okay. Now, the time to install that task we agreed was 15 minutes. Now, I didn't do $338.10, I rounded up $339. Based on my 15 minutes to install, that's $84.75. Check my math, make sure I'm right. I am from Paulding County, Georgia, so I might be wrong there. Total retail on this particular task is $101.81. Now, I have, quote, arrived at my selling price. And I'm showing you how this applies to every single thing in the price book, okay? And if your price book is in Excel, there is a faster way to do this. You don't have to do this by hand on every task. And we do that here at Blue Collar for our members. So this is a test. Let's see how close we are in this scenario. And this is where we're going to go. Retail of that particular task was $101.81. My material was $8.53. Based on my $48.30 an hour, I pay $12 in labor to have that said breaker installed. If I add $8.53 and $12 brings me to a total direct cost of $20.53. We all agreed earlier that that was what we would consider to be above the line. And now you and I have created a direct cost of 20.2% or an 80% gross margin on that particular task. Now, based on what I just shared, type it in the box if those are good margins for you. Is that yes or no? Is that a good margin, yes or no? Either a Y or an N, either one. So, okay. All right. Interesting. Maybe I didn't explain myself. So I got some no's at first. Let me just say this. And I'm getting some yeses now. Maybe let me clarify, meaning that if my total direct cost on that job only cost me 20%, okay, and the average business overhead, watch this, the average business overhead runs about 40%. 40% and 20% is 60%, which leaves me a 40% profit margin. Let me repeat that. If I take my selling price and I subtract my direct cost in this scenario of 20%, that leaves me 80% gross margin. The average business runs about 40% overhead in business. Subtract that 40% from the 80%, and now I'm running a 40% net profit. Let me write that up here just so that you can see that. And if you're a service business right now and you're on the line, I'm not trying to muscle up. Send me your income statement if this is what it looks like at the bottom of the income statement every month. If you run a 40% net profit every month, I want to see it. Like, I want to go see that. Perfect. Thank you, Michael Carlo. I'm gonna give you somebody. Yeah. So the 40 will be your take home. No, Kelly. Great question. Michael, I want to see that if you're willing to share that with me, man, because I'm telling you, getting 40% net on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, I want to see how you do it, man. You might be onto something that you might be onto something in solving our industry's challenges. Now, let me say this. That was on one task, right? That was just on one task. And this is where your law of averages of some task I'm going to be at 18%. Because of that, it's going to work out to where every now and then, and this is where I show you those lower cost material items, you can drive really strong margins with this. And that's where you really have the ability to muscle up when you get add-on sales, right? Because if I go out and I just do the breaker, let me say this. If I go run that call and I just do the breaker, yes, that number looks good as a percentage on paper, but I want you to remember this. You can't deposit gross margin percentages in the bank. Nobody deposits profit percentages. They deposit profit dollars. And this goes back to the, now we've got to sell enough of those gadgets and widgets to cover our overhead. When we cover our overhead, now we're talking about strong profit margins, right? And when you're driving a 40%, the take home, so when you say take home, Kelly, in this scenario, no, I don't take this home because this is after I paid for all the cost of providing that service. I provided the direct labor, the cost of material, and then I paid overhead. Once again, I said the average business runs about 40% overhead. Those are as follows. That includes marketing, that includes vehicles, that includes the facility, that includes all other employee overhead and the overhead labor such as general managers, call center, and the loaded wages that go with it, the benefits that go with it, and then lastly, administrative. And those five typically run about 40. I have seen as high as a well-run business, maybe at 42. I have seen it as low as 35. Okay. So once again, a business all determines on the number one reason why a business fails. I said this before in previous trainings, the number one reason why a business fails, not priced correctly. And for those that are underpriced, you won't be able to pay your bills. And for those that are overpriced, you'll eventually get ran out of town. Now, let's get back to the heartbeat of where we're at, which is pricing our services. The other challenge as well that we face, and I didn't want to get into this, but now we've got to create this belief in our team members that they can go sit in front of a customer and sell at this price. And if you're like, hey, all of our team, yes, good for you. But I'm telling you, as a new electrician that came into Flat Rate, I just told this story in 2005, January 3rd, 2005. I'll never forget it. It was the first time I was introduced to Flat Rate. A guy I was training with, he handed me the price book and he said to me, hey, I need you to learn this price book because you're going to need to know it so you can get ready to run service calls. And I opened it up and I looked down. This is 2005. And I said, $49 to replace an outlet. He said, and he never even missed a beat and he was driving. He said, yup, and we get that all day long. And in my mind, I couldn't conceive why an outlet should cost $49 because that outlet only costs $2 and I know what my wages are. But see, when you really understand the cost, the true cost of doing business, it can create an insane amount of confidence in your team. In fact, that's a training for all of our blue collar members. If you're on today, I want to make sure you're using that as a part of your onboarding for all of your new team members to make sure that your team is confident in your pricing. So let's move on to that. Now we've got our pricing squared away. We are, quote, priced right. All right. So now let's move on to the second item, and that is field labor management. I'm going to give you a few nuggets around field labor management and what would cause field labor to be high. Remember, we talked about the above the line items. Field labor is one. Number one, accounting practices. That might cause field labor to be out of line. It's all about how field labor is accounted for. Now I'm going to talk about that for a moment when we have payrolls that straddle a month, right? And we don't separate that payroll into the month. We just go, oh, this way, it'll work itself out. Like I understand that, but what that's going to look like on an income statement is field labor doing this. And you might pull it at the end of the year and go, hey, we hit the number. But I certainly wouldn't want to be playing a game and come to the end of time and go, whoo, I'm glad that worked out. I'm wanting to look at it every period if I'm a hockey player, every quarter if I'm a football player, every inning if I'm a baseball player. I want to know the score at the end so that when we come out, I can go, okay, what ground do we got to make up? Or more importantly, how much are we winning by? And I'm going to tell you, I'm not one of these in your face, egotistical, testosterone driven people, but I'm telling you this today. If you want to win, you got to be aggressive. You've got to be aggressive with it. You got to keep your eye on that. So I'm going to give you a couple little nuggets here today. You may consider setting up your GLs to see what's going on. What I mean by that is if field labor is out of whack, when we look at accounting practices, setting it up, and this is very similar to what I had in my business. So field labor was the parent company. And by the way, if you're on QuickBooks or any other accounting software that I'm going to use accounting technology or terminology, this is the parent account. And then under those parent accounts, you can create sub accounts. And if you notice in this scenario, I created parent account, sub account, and then another sub account in the sub account. So I could pull a report that would say show expanded detail. And when I pull the report that says show expanded detail, now it takes all of my field labor that when it's condensed, it's one number, one percentage. Oh, nugget, by the way, for those that are reviewing income statement, I highly recommend that when you pull the income statement that you do so and show percentages of revenue or show percentages of income so that you can truly see and not have to do the math on those items that are the variable numbers that I said we manage by the percentage. So in this scenario, I can tell you some of the challenges that can be faced, right? So really quickly, I might be able to see, oh, wow, it looks like our apprentices are getting a lot of overtime. It looks like our service techs are getting a lot of overtime. Overtime is not an ugly word for me unless it's unproductive. Okay, so let me say that. That's where you got to manage the business by the numbers and not say everybody goes home at 40 hours because I might have a technician that's already at, say, $10,000 in service work for the week on Thursday, and they're at 42 hours. I don't cut them on Friday. Listen, let that horse run. Let them go produce the revenue today, and yes, pay them overtime, but a $10,000 service truck you already be in hyper profitability mode. Manage the business by the numbers. I'm not saying today that number is the number, but when you know your numbers, you'll know at what point does my wage to sales number matter. So if I'm looking at a wage to sales report and I'm recognizing even somebody at 42, 45, 46 hours wage to sales is running at 10% field labor, let the horse run. Let them go sell. Let them go do the work. So this is the first step. The second step, and I told you the two reasons why. Number one, straddling a pay period. Number two, not really having it broken down so that you can see your field labor. Listen, if your field labor is high, you do not want to go back and be trying to break out time cards and, oh, give me the payroll login, because those numbers don't equate to the revenue number. Make sure that your accounting is set up correctly. Number two is the compensation plan. Before we dig into the compensation plan, I simply want to say this. There is no compensation plan that will substitute for management. It's not like if we pay them this, they'll go do that, and we won't ever have to manage and what. Not true. It is just simply not true. Will it help? It will, but it won't substitute for management. So compensation plans are super important to managing the field labor. And I'm going to give you a few ways to look at it. And I can certainly take questions if anybody's got any. We'll park in a minute and we'll ask, yeah, you're right on that, Bill Sweeney, killer callbacks, right? So the first one is hourly or hourly plus, meaning hourly plus commission, hourly plus spiffs, hourly plus performance-based pay of some sign. So if I'm strictly hourly, or I can be hourly plus. The second one is salary. And then you've got salary plus. Now, I'm not going to shred these two comp plans today. I'm not. Sometimes businesses, this works for them. I have found that in some markets that you're going to not be able to attract top talent if they've got to work by the hour, because they understand the concept that I can only get paid as many hours as I'm willing to work, right? So the ceiling is already visible. However, there's some other comp plans. You can do a performance-based pay, and I'm going to talk about that for a moment. And then there's commissions. Commissions could be also based on, hey, if you sell X, we give you X percentage. If you sell X percentage at X percent at gross margin, then we give you X percentage. The other one could be task pay. And task pay is very simple, which is, I'm going to go back to this, okay? Task pay could be in this scenario. I'm going to use the same scenario here and show you how task pay works. In fact, in my business, that's how I paid. I paid task pay. So in this scenario, I could say I pay my technicians $80 an hour on task pay. So what that means for me, 15 minutes equals $20 in task. So that technician that installs the single breaker would make $20 to install that breaker. It keeps my labor in check. However, it doesn't matter what your compensation plan is. I want to say this. There's no compensation plan that will just fix margins unless it's managed. And so I've seen people that pay commission and their margins are out of line. So I'm trying to dig in to ask the questions. Tell me more about the compensation plan. Let me ask better questions, because we're going to have to surface what's going on. Let me give you a little nugget around comp plans, okay? If it's complex, it's just simply not scalable. It's not scalable. You're going to have to hire people to do full-time payroll for you. I don't know about you, but I'm not looking to add overhead for that, right? I was looking when I got on software and using software in my business, I was hoping it would decrease the need for overhead people doing payroll for me. So what I'm going to say is, if your plans revolve around everything needing to line up just right in order for you to make good money, the stars got to be over here, and if this, then this. Here's a good nugget for you. Ready? If you're wondering if your comp plan is scalable or if it's simple, don't ask one of your seasoned team members. Ask somebody that's been with you inside of 6 months to sit down and explain to you how they get paid and how they can make more money. If they can't explain it to you, there's a really good chance it's too complex, therefore makes it more difficult for them to know how to work the system to make great money. Now, how can a service business pay commissions but still have field labor cost challenges? Once again, it could be because it's a sliding scale based on gross margins. And in addition to that, maybe like me in the state of Florida, I still had to pay overtime wages because commissioned or performance-based pay was not considered a non-exempt. It was because they had to work with hand tools. Check your local labor attorney. I'm not a labor law attorney, so you got to go figure that out yourself. Now, number 3, no system to make sure the right techs get to the right calls. What does that mean? Right tech, right call. We've heard this dispatching for profits, dispatching, right tech, right. We hear all this stuff all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you really quick how number 3 can cut into your margins. It starts with a call priority matrix. This is really about the call opportunity. This is an axis that we teach our members. So members, if you're on today, you know what we're talking about. We just taught this in Management Growth Academy, where there is a list of call types. And then there's ages. And based on the call type and the age, it gives you a number based on 1 through 5. 5 is the highest priority, 1's the lowest priority. Let me say this, all calls are not equal. I know people say this all the time. I said this in my past. I said, oh, you just got to go run the call. The call will be what you make of it. Well, okay, let me give you the scenario. You're going out to install a ceiling fan on a house that's 2 years old versus you're going to a house that has outlets not working and it's 30 years old. Don't listen, I'm going to be nice. Don't give me the BS of I would turn the 2-year ceiling fan call into a $20,000 job just as easy. The opportunities just aren't there. It doesn't have old smoke detectors. It doesn't have an old panel. It doesn't have an old, do you see where I'm going with this? Age and call type matter. And so when you have a systematized call priority matrix in your business where your call center, when they're booking the call, they're placing that number of value on that, and you have what is called a technician legend. Now that technician legend helps you determine which technicians run which calls. Now I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty in here, but we at Blue Collar, we teach technician levels. And what I mean by technician levels is if you're a level 1 tech, you can only run level 1 type calls, not call priority 1 calls, but level 1 type calls, which means you're not going to get to run the good calls. This now begs the question, are all technicians held to the same standard when it comes to a revenue number that they have to produce daily, monthly, and weekly? If so, it's a broken system, and you've just now set your team member at a disadvantage because of that. So what we teach at Blue Collar is technician levels, where each level has a different level of priority. We call it scorecards. Now, when I've got a technician legend, this is the tool that allows my dispatcher to know what calls that I can send what text to. And I'm just going to say this in the kindest way that I know how to say it. This industry is got a massive problem of overpaid dispatchers in the industry. Now, what I didn't say is dispatchers are overpaid. I just said this industry as a whole, not you, but the industry as a whole has a massive problem of overpaying for dispatching. And the reason why is because the only person that knows what calls should be dispatched to what texts are the service managers. I see it all the time. Listen, I coach a $150 million business and their service managers all day long sit in front of the board, watching the board, seeing who's going to what call. I mean, for heaven's sake, do you realize how expensive that is to have a high paid manager sitting, making sure that a dispatcher can get the right tech to the right call? If you have the right systems in place, you don't need that. It's a call priority matrix. It's a technician legend. And then lastly, if you have a lot of callbacks or warranty calls. So that can cause labor to go up because unproductive, unbillable time that I can bill out to customers. So once again, when I'm looking at right tech, right call, if I send a technician that, watch this, undersells the job, which means they went out and put a Band-Aid on the call and didn't really fix the problem. They charged the customer the least amount of money possible. Now I got a callback going to there. But if I had sent the right tech to begin with out of the gate, I would have been able to maximize the call, serve the customer at the highest level, and the company makes a profit for doing so. When you take care of the customer will take care of your company. When you take care of your team members will take care of your customers. Which means at the end of the day, when I take care of my people take care of my business. And that's something that we wrap our mind around, right? Like that's pretty powerful when you really think about that. So the next is number 4 is unproductive labor. And that's because nobody's watching what's going on. They're not managing labor accordingly. Technicians hanging around the office in the mornings, not heading out to their jobs, not taking the most efficient routes. They get a call window of 11 to 2 and it's 11 o'clock and they're like, well, heck, I got 2 more hours where I got to be there. And I'm telling you, there's 2 things that go on in a business. And I'm saying this from a place of love. The first thing is what you think's going on. The second thing is what is really going on. And rarely do I see those be the same. Be careful to not fall into the trap of the amateur of, I run a really good business and that would never happen in my business because this, and this. Just validate it, see it, unproductive labor. The other one it could be is, think about this. not having properly stocked vehicles, not having the right material on the job that you consume often. So now when you sell, now instead of doing the work, it takes more time because now you got to run and go get the part. Go get the part, or worse, you sell the job and reschedule it and come back later after you went and picked the part up. Now you've run that call twice. That just doesn't make sense. So making sure you have properly stocked vehicles are important as well. Now, the next thing that I would recommend that you do as a part of that is to track your sales to hours daily. It's one of those, I said earlier, ways to sales report. Even if you're doing it manually, even if you've got a, hey, here was yesterday's sales, here's how many hours that are worked on a whiteboard. You don't have to have software. Software will just make it easier. And you're going to keep track of all other labor by hours daily. How many hours my apprentice have, how many hours my call center have. And so now I'm managing, once again, overhead labor. I mean, direct labor, not overhead. So who are the people we worry about? They're all field-based team members. Now, when I go back, I've seen techs, salespeople, installers, and apprentices, right? Most of our people are going to fall into one of those four buckets. And now I'm asking the question, is it the standard wage or is it the overtime wage? Because this is where I'll be able to see productive hours when they're in overtime, right? Because they're billing out at a high level. The next one is around material and equipment management. So now we've covered field labor. Thank you so much for taking time. Let me ask, what if we shut the webinar down right now after an hour? This ain't about me, it's about you. If we shut the webinar down right now and I said, hey, that's it, the end, and it's not, by the way. How many people feel like today they could go take some action right now and they know that just those items right there would have improved their margins? Is that a yes or a no? Because okay, cool. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that, brother. Yes, and I see. Yes, ain't validate for me. I just want to make sure you're taking good notes to like, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. Let me go look at it, right? That's one of those, that's where I'm like, I know I'm in the right spot as an operator when I go, I don't know the answer to that. I think it's this, but let me go validate that. So let's continue on. So material and equipment management. I'm gonna give you some good stuff around here. I feel like my business was pretty darn good at this. And the systems and processes we had in place. The first one, the reason why I'd get out of whack is not really accounting for warranty parts and equipment. So let me say, how would I address that? There's several ways that you can do this. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but the way that I had my system set up, and some of y'all will even figure this out. You ready? You ready? Some of y'all will figure this out. So the software that I used, when I had a technician go out, right? I had them use the task for a callback or warranty. That callback or warranty, now they have another task that they add to it, that the actual task. The callback warranty task triggered an alert to my material manager. Now my material manager got an email that said, Chris had a callback today. He used a callback and he needed a part for that. I had a nice little simple form that the technician filled out what the part was, what the customer's name was, and what the job number was. I'll figure things out from there. I can track it back to that so that I can then now take that out as a part. And more importantly, the material manager saying, I need to make sure that I get that part back so that I can warranty it out with the supply house. And in many cases, some of us are just throwing those parts away. It's a $5 part, it's a $10 part, it's only a $15 part. How much money would you have to sell if you were a 20% net company to make 10 bucks? And I just got to tell you, every dollar matters. And so having an accountability process that allows for warranty and parts and equipment to be returned. We only do the big stuff, right? But I'm telling you, the little stuff matters. You see in that little breaker, how the marking up of that breaker can create massive margin opportunities. And just like it creates massive margin opportunities, not collecting those warranty parts and getting them back to your supplier to get a return part in exchange for that erodes. It's like little termites that are just eating away at your margins slowly. Okay, so having that. The next thing that we'll talk about is no real PO system. You guys might have to grab a beer or a soda or something for this one for me to really tell the entire story on this one. But I will say this. most people don't understand what a real PO system is. And so I'm not going to minimize your knowledge today as it relates to PO systems. But the one thing that I will do is say this. When everybody has access to pull POs, you don't really have a PO system, because a PO system is a purchase order approval system that requires approval for people to be able to purchase things. So that means the only people that should have access, and listen, I'm talking to, okay, I'm going to say this as kindly as I know how. You can get pissed off at me today if you want to, but whether you agree with me or not, I'm telling you right now, allowing technicians to pull their own POs is a disaster in the making. Now, don't get mad at me for saying that, but it's a disaster in the making. The reason why is because now the people that can purchase parts have full control to buy whatever the heck they want to buy when they're at the supply house, whether attached to that job or not, whether it was for Miss Jones for tomorrow. Oh, while I'm in here, I need to go ahead and get this. Oh, you know what I thought about? And that's what happened. So let me give you a quick rundown of my PO system, just real quick, okay? High level. Technician needs a part. Well, first off, when they sell the job, the very first thing that they do is they're going to go to the truck, get the parts off. They're going to recognize, oh, I don't have that gadget widget or whatever it is that I need to be able to complete this job. They then are going to phone in for a material search. Hey, I need this part. This is how many I need. Here's the specifics. Material manager says, okay, great. How many do you need? All right, great. The material manager then goes to work. If it's a normal truck stock item, I might have another technician close by that I can pull out of inventory off of their truck, do a transfer on the balance sheet to their other warehouse. Boom, problem solved. Or I might say, hey, I've tracked it down. This is the most effective place to go buy it. It might not be the cheapest place, but it's the most efficient. Maybe it's across town an hour away, might save me $1. It doesn't make sense to me. That's why the material manager who manages the margin for that is responsible for that. They then place the call into the supply house. Hey, I need to get so and so and so and so. Great. I need you to go get your hands on that part. Make sure you have it. Perfect. Great. Here's the PO number for it. Okay. And what's my cost for that again? Okay. Material manager now opens the PO that they gave them, enters that cost of that PO on that job. Now what happens is the accounting system, and I'm just going to go on a record and ask the question today. How does your accounting department know what your supply house is billing you as the correct price or not? I mean, how do you know? Because I bet nobody's ever fell victim to the, yeah, we had a price increase. We forgot to notify you about that. Yeah, right? It's like, so this is your fail safe. This is the fail safe. So I told my accounting department, listen, here's how this works. Everything that we buy, yes, thank you, Dan. I'm going to get down on that. PO has to match the line in the PO exactly. Not by 1 penny can it be off. And I explain this to all my techs. When you go in there, if you forgot something, they can't add anything to that PO. You're going to have to call me and get another PO from me. This is cost containment at its best. This is how profitable business continue to be profitable. Chris, you sound like you're running a military and a real tight ship. And listen, you don't get to be a $70 million business running at 20% net without running a tight ship. I don't know about you, but I don't want my money running out the door because I got a chicken I got a fox in the hen house, right? Technicians are on the twofer process. And I've heard technicians say this. Oh yeah, I'm on the twofer process. One for the company, one for me. I get two every time I go. And they overstock their truck, or they needed one for their house, or it just happens. Nobody's maliciously, intentionally going to steal from you, but it happens in cost control. Super important, right? So no real PO system can lead to getting this. And the same was true around, I don't want to get into it, but marketing. The way I set up marketing, every contract I set up in PO systems because I needed cost control, because I don't want accounting coming to me going, is this approved? Is this approved? Is this approved? The only thing they have to ask for me, the things are approved, the things didn't have a PO, because everything that's got a PO has got an exact cost, and you only pay the thing that's on the invoice for the PO. If PO invoice match, pay that thing. If it doesn't, then it's a discrepancy. Let's find out the answer. Number three, not job costing frequently. So I hear people say this all the time that, hey, Chris, how should I job cost? When should I job cost? Here's a good rule of thumb. Good rule of thumb is job cost everything over $1,000. And if you're finding that you're coming in good on margins on everything over 1,000, you might decide to go to 1,500 and then to 2,000. 100% of my replacement jobs are job costed. So for my HVAC companies out there, every replacement job we do, I'm job costing it. If you're a plumbing company and I'm doing a water heater, and if I'm doing water treatment, if I'm doing a repipe, either water supply or drain, large job, I'm doing a job costing on that job because I need to understand, are we priced correctly on the big jobs? Because that is where you're going to get your lunch handed to you, is not pricing yourself on big jobs. You can lose a lot of money really fast on big jobs, so you need to course correct that. I understand you may have a method of how you price big jobs and you're involved. I understand that. But that is not scalable. And I want to help you create freedom for yourself, which means if you're constantly tied to always pricing jobs, you're never going to create scale and freedom. So once again, get your price book set up, get everything set the way you need. Number four, improper accounting practices, meaning these are cost purchases versus asset purchases. An example of that, we see it all the time. Oh yeah, I'm reviewing an income statement. So I'm like, good Lord, your material cost this month is out of sane. What happened? I don't know. So I start going through and oh, you know what? We put a new truck on the road. And putting a new truck on the road is an asset purchase of the material, not a cost. Cost is things that are, once again, direct cost of goods sold. It's a cost associated with delivering the services. All that material should be on the balance sheet. So this is the next reason why I said profit does not equal cash. So in that scenario, the money that I spend to stock a truck to put it on the road, that's a balance sheet. And I don't want to get in the weeds on this one, but I'm a big believer that all of your vehicles that are running around on the road should be set up as individual warehouses in your balance sheet. So that way you can do warehouse transfers and make sure stock stays good. However, if you're a small company today, let me say this. Sometimes the squeeze isn't worth the juice that you're going to get in some of these processes. You won't need them until you get a little larger. However, let me caveat, you'll never become a large business until you start acting like a large business and doing what large businesses do. Okay. Well, Chris, I can't afford to hire somebody. Then build it into the cost of doing business, and the customer pays for anything anyways. So I'll put that to rest. So now when we look at improper accounting practices, it's around stocking a warehouse by, oh, we got a good deal. We got a good deal on equipment, so we bought a bunch of extra. Well, you got to make sure when you go to accounting on that, when you say, hey, by the way, this was an asset purchase. This was not a cost of goods sold. And so making sure that when you're buying the asset purchases that you're accounting for it correctly. Otherwise, it's going to look like, and more importantly, there's no cost control on the balance sheet. Now, number 5, poor inventory management. Let's not get out on that one. Really quick, I'm going to stop. We've been going hard for like 5 or 6 rounds. Let me just stop for a minute. What questions might you have for me thus far? You can do one of 2 things. You can either chat them in or you can unmute yourself. Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you, brother. You're going to get the recording for attending. So anybody have any questions or thoughts around this? Okay.
Hey, Chris.
Yep, go ahead.
Chris, this is Rick. I'm Rick Mitchell. I'm with Renai. I work for Renai Tankless Water Heaters.
Okay.
Thank you for this. This has been eye-opening for me to help me understand from a manufacturer's perspective how we can help you and all these team members out here while they're in the street. One of the things that hit me primarily was when you were talking about product callbacks and warranties. You know, And one of the big things that I see that manufacturers can help you there is where you have the quality products, the best warranties, and the best, when I say warranty, it's on parts and on labor. For instance, we have a product that you can take from a 1-year parts and labor to a 5-year parts and labor by just registering the product. Renai is taking care of those costs for 5 years. That's a big deal. These folks need to be working with manufacturers that they trust and have these types of warranties, because it helps make that bottom line you're talking about become a really big deal.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rick. In fact, I'll say this, you know, my manufacturers and my distributors I work with so closely, and let me just go on the record and say this. So you're around blue collar, you know how, you've been around blue collar in this community for a while, you know how I feel about this one. You can't treat your vendors like shit. Let me just say that. Like, you can't. They're an extension of your team. You treat them like that, they're not going to do you any favors, and they're not really on your side. So when you put them in a chokehold, try to give them a noogie and try to say, give me the best price, and then treat them like crap, like you've squeezed all their margins and their ability to serve you at a high level. So treat all your vendors like an extension of your team. If you wouldn't treat your team members that way, don't treat your vendors that way. And I'm gonna get off that soapbox. Let me go back. Shannon had a question on that. Explain the PO process. So yeah, in that scenario, Shannon, like they're job specific POs, what we're talking about right now. And the technician calls, ask for, the salesperson call, installer calls and asks for, give me a list of what, I phone that in. Let's say that they go, whoops, I forgot I need an XYZ. Yes, a separate PO is cut for that, because if they just add it to that PO and then I mean, I could update it, but once again, I don't want to be changing and updating, because I want to truly be able to see now, and this is the reason why. If I'm job costing and I see that there's 5 POs from the same warehouse or for the same distributor on the same job, that boils down to what? Poor direct labor management. I got inefficient labor. So now I can work with that particular salesperson or technician on, hey, you didn't really think through this job. And I understand that sometimes the scope of the job can change. I do understand that. Hey, they added this on. They want me to do more work. So yes, thank you for that, Robert. Good for you, brother. This gives you the opportunity to really streamline cost control. Every time we go to Splash to get stuff, I've got to have a separate PO. And quite frankly, it might come from 3 or 4 different locations, right? So I hope that, yep, 100%, Tom. The cost lower than the PO. Do you allow accounting to pay it? Nope. 1 penny above or 1 penny under is the discrepancy I want to figure out, because then I might need to edit my cost of doing business, right? If all of a sudden I'm like, why did we get a price break? What's happening here, right? I need to see evidence of that. So it's a great question, Tom. Thank you all for being so patient. I know that sometimes a 2-hour training can wear on your patience. We're only about an hour 20 in, so don't worry. We got plenty of time to cover all the information, get you what you're looking for. So number 5 is poor inventory management, which means there is no solid process in how we keep track of the inventory on trucks. Now, in order to make sure that inventory on trucks is kept good, we've got to have a process in how we inventory. And I'm not a fan of inventorying once a year. I'm a big fan of cycle counts, just like a warehouse is if they were a distributor. So distributors do cycle counts. I do cycle counts 12 months out of the year, meaning that I inventory the same areas of a truck. And this goes back to all my trucks were systematized and laid out the same way. And because they were systematized and laid out the same way, I created a process around creating cycle counts. So 12 months out of the year, I'm constantly pulling overages and filling underages, so that at the end of the year, I'm not writing off a number of shrinkage in my inventory. Now, my warehouse was under lock and key, and then I had a whole process of what that looks like. Technicians that have the ability to walk through the warehouse do things like grab things that they think they're going to need, but that doesn't systematize. And now I got 6 of the gadgets on this truck. I got 4 over here, 3 over here, and my balance sheet isn't even right. And what did I say in the beginning? Run the business by the numbers. If you're going to run the business by the numbers, you've got to have process and systems in place to be able to do so. Number 6, paying too much for material and equipment. Now, this one is a very very ginger conversation, but here's what I'm going to say to you. I'm not going to get into it today, but I can create an insane amount of cash flow by negotiating terms with my vendors. Sometimes it might be in your best interest to pay cash for things like, hey, when I look at terms, if my terms are not favorable, I may ask for less favorable terms, but cheaper price. So there's an axis that the distributor can work with you on, which is, hey, if you'll pay me due on receipt, I can get you this kind of pricing on this. If you do net 10 terms, this is the kind of pricing. If you go 15, in other words, the longer that I go, the more likelihood is I'm going to pay a little bit more for those items. However, let me say this. I want you to think in simplification terms. If I looked at my business and I built a budget and I'm going to do, say, $20 million next year, and I run at 10% material, that means I'm going to buy and purchase $2 million of material and equipment this year. As a part of my relationship with my distributor, or my distributor, say, hey guys, I need you to do me a favor. I need to reevaluate pricing again for 2025, 2024. I plan on spending about $2 million. And just so you know, I let people shop this every single year. No, the best price does not win, but the best price that delivers the best service wins. The people that I feel like can help me partner for the next 12 months. And what I'm going to say to you, and I heard that we've got some distributors and manufacturers, and they're not like what I'm going to say, but I'm telling you how to run a good business. You should revisit that every year. Revisit it every year. There's a way to not have to do that, and that's another conversation for another day that creates insane cash flow of that strategy. But every year I'm putting it out on the market for bid again. So that what that means is every single one of my distributors they've got to love the one they're with, which is me. They got to take care of me every year. You don't get to just slowly hike my prices up every year and get me back to where everybody else is at, because I'm going to put that thing out for bid every single year. Now, once again, you heard, I love my vendors. I treat them well. I treat them fair. And I'm going to tell you, I treat them better. You ask any of my vendors I've ever done business with, all of them will tell you, yes, we love doing business with him. Yes, he drives a hard bargain. Yes, he's good to us. And yes, he pays his bills. So there's that. Now let's move into the 3 other direct costs. And I'm going to talk briefly about these. Get you out of here. Don't leave yet, though, okay? We're going to dig into these 3. While small, can be massive opportunities. I see Michael Reardon, I don't know if he's still on right now, but he said gold dust eventually makes gold bars. And he's 100% right on that. Gold, you get enough gold dust, you'll have some gold bars on your hands. So I want to get you some gold bars through this gold dust. The first one is permits, job permits. Couple things you need to know about that. Not charging for them. Do not build them into the cost of doing the job, right? What? Oh, we kind of add it. Make it a line item. So there's other things you can do around systematizing that. If you say, hey, every time we do a water heater, we always have to pull a permit. Okay, cool. Build it into the price of it. Just know that sometimes because of that, you can't charge the price of the permit. You might need to. Next, you ready? Not having a real good permit management process in the business and allowing permits to expire and having to reinstate them. Before I had the I'd pull a permit and let it expire before we get inspected because we were growing at such a fast pace. Didn't really make sense. I can say this, that we put a process in place of how to manage permits in our software system, and we can teach you how to do that as well. So paying reinstatement fees. Number 2, a lot of failed inspections. So having to pay failed inspection fees or having a reinspection fee. So it goes back to 3 things. Number 1, not charging for them. Number 2, letting them expire. Number 3, failing inspections. And those 3, when you start looking at permits and you start looking at percentage of revenue, of where my revenue's coming from and then where the cost is going out, permits can certainly be a big one for that. Number 2, subcontractors. Same thing. Not charging for them. Number 1, not building them in the cost of doing the job. Like, hey, every time we do this job, we know that we hire a subcontractor. Well, then make sure you build it into your cost, or have that conversation with the customers. We don't do that. You have to hire somebody else. That's a business decision. I'm not here to split hairs over whether you have it hired out or they have it hired out. The next, the team is too careless and they're falling through ceilings. They're drilling holes in floors. They're chipping countertops. They're staining carpets. There's oil stains on the driveway. They're walking across the grass and hurting. Like, you just never know, right? So when the team is careless, subcontractor costs can go up. Or the next one, not having an established pricing system by working with the same subcontractors all the time. So if you're on the phone right now, if I'm an electrician, I'm saying, who's my plumber in town that I work with when I need a subcontractor? Who's my HVAC company in town? Who's my painter? Who's my landscaper? Who's my concrete company? And so for some of you right now, you need to go find you a list of subcontractors that will work with you and work for you as a part of that. That'll help you as well. Okay. So the last one is around equipment rental. Not accounting for the price of the job, like, whoops, we needed a crane for a half a day. Or, whoops, we needed the crane for the full day and I only charged for half a day. That does happen. So the rental time isn't estimated correctly. And what ends up happening is you end up overpaying for rentals. Now it's 5:30 Eastern. Let's stop for a minute. I want you to take a breath. We have covered an insane amount of information in the last hour and a half. But what I want you to do is take a moment, push back. Don't leave, by the way. We're not done. This is that whole, we're about to enter in the fourth quarter component. There's a ton of things that many of you might be thinking, I need to go do that. You know what, Chris? I'm out of here. I got something I got to go do. I got to get out of here. Of which some people have already done. They were so busy, they didn't have 2 hours to commit to the business. Stop thinking that you need to go do a bunch of stuff. Or don't go, God, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing wrong. We need to stop doing. I want to talk to you about next steps for yourself, okay? So as a part of taking next steps, you created for yourself a list of action items and notes. I've heard somebody say this before, that you eat an elephant one bite at a time. I prescribe to a different methodology. Yeah, you can eat the elephant one bite at a time. It's going to take you a long time to do that. But if there's a big elephant that needs to be eaten, I'm just going to invite all my friends that are hungry, and we're all going to chow down on this elephant together. So what I mean by that is you've got team members that you can enlist their services. You can start delegating. So when you're looking at your list, start thinking about your priorities. If you've got 10 things, trim it down to 5, trim it down to 3, trim it down to 2, trim it down to 1. What's the most important thing that we're going to work on today, moving forward when we leave here? When I look, what are the items that I'm going to delegate? Who am I going to delegate them to? And by what time do I want them completed? They might need some information. I don't really know where to get started. That's the reason why, because you're staying here, we're going to get you the recording so you can go back and be like, hey, let me take some notes and nuggets if I forgot to. Remember that taking action is the most important thing that you can do for your business and for your team. So my question is, who's ready to go do that? Who's ready to now? Just type it in the box right now. I'm ready, or I'm in. Type in to let me know. Perfect. 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 Yes, yes, yes. Let's do this. Yeah, exactly. So here's what I want you to do for next steps, okay? I hope that today, by spending the last hour and a half, that you feel more confident. I hope that you have found that our time has been valuable and that now you've created a level of trust within yourself. And more importantly, you can trust the process. And as a part of trusting the process, I want to kind of share with you this concept of working in the business versus working on the business. Now, I'm going to ask you 3 simple questions. And I want you to type in the response either in or on. What I mean by that is, if I ask the question, you would say, thank you, man. I appreciate that, brother. It's just good to see you, by the way. If I said today, question, and you say in it or on it. So I want you to type in as in or on. You clear? First question. Which one's more comfortable? Which one is more comfortable, working in it or working on it? Of course. Working in it's the easiest thing to do. It's the thing that puts fires out. It's the thing that chases the next shiny out. It's the thing that we all become so accustomed to doing, working in the business. Second question. which one is the most demanding, in it or on it? It's the urgent one, right? It's like, I need you to fix this now. I need you to, I got a customer concern. I got a technician that called out sick. I got a car that, is broke down the side, like all these things. And we're like, we're just like, ah. Question for you. Which one's most impactful, working in it or on it? Okay, yeah, and I agree with you. Do you know what? Thank you all so very, thanks for having the awareness. And I'm not saying today that, you don't do it. I'm not saying today that you don't do this, but here's what I am going to say. Working on it sometimes is most difficult. And that's the reason why that our members talk about this event. They talk about an event that we call Acceleration Days. This is actually one of our members in Knoxville, Tennessee. Kelton actually said, hey, it's been fire, and I've learned nonstop during the sessions, and then I just keep learning during the breaks as I network and I exchange ideas with my industry peers. Another one of our members, that's an electrician in the Mass area, said our limiting beliefs we had prior to have gone out the window. Our mindset has absolutely changed and started when we came down for Acceleration Days workshop. After that is when the whole thing started to shift. So here's what I'm going to ask you a question. What would you be willing to invest in your business and your team if it made sense? If it made sense. If it made sense. The first investment that anybody makes is time. And let me say this. Today, I have mad respect for you. I have mad respect for you guys for taking 2 hours out of your day where I know you could have been working in it, right? But what you did was you pulled back and started working on it. And so time is important, but money's another component as well. And so what I want to share with you is that if I asked you what 2.5 days would mean for you, your business, and your team, if it was a table of owners and managers that are just like you, would that be of value to you? And by the way, let me say this. It's an industry event. Anybody can use an excuse to go somewhere and eat and drink like you're on vacation. I'm not talking about one of those events. I'm not talking about going to a concert while you're at the event. I'm not talking about going to a museum. I'm talking about working on your business. So I want you to write down these 3 dates right now. April the 24th, the 25th, and the 26th. These can end up being the most impactful 2.5 days. Thank you, Danetta. This could be the most impactful 2.5 days that you and your team could have in Phoenix, Arizona. It's our Acceleration Days workshop, okay? This event, please don't leave. I'm not pitching you anything. Am I here to offer something to you? 100%. I'd be foolish to not do this for you. And if you'll hold on, you're going to see why it makes sense. This event is easily worth $3,000 a ticket. This is not one of those kind of events, okay? This is an event that our members have experienced exponential growth. You've seen what Kelton said. You've seen what James said. You've seen what Danetta has said in here, in the chat. When you see our members and what they do, they experience growth in margins and profits, and it consistently provides confidence to them and their team while they're building and growing their business, working on it. This is an example. This is not one of those where I'm going to pack 10,000 people in the room and you don't get to network and talk to people. 100% not. It's not that way. Our Acceleration Days workshop is themed around strengthening and fortifying your business. No train, no gain. Because our members enjoy this event as a part of their membership, our cost for the event's already covered. Due to that, there's an opportunity for you. Okay, so this is why I want you to hold on. This is the opportunity. We want to provide you with this opportunity to go to work on your business workshop style. I'm super excited about this format, by the way. You get to interact with our community, the blue collar community, and that network of our members. Because it's 2.5 days, everything is focused on fortifying your business and strengthening everything. So question, type in the box right now. Do you want to strengthen your business? Yes or no? Type it in the box. Okay, good, good. I mean, I think, okay, Chris, you've asked us a dumb question. Of course, we want to make our business better. All right, great. Well, let me show you how that works, okay? If you'll allow me, just I'll be done, by the way, before time. I'm going to be done early. So thank you for the space and allowing me to do this for you guys today. This is some of the things that we're going to be working on. We're going to be working on creating your org chart for the future business. We're going to be building processes regarding material and vehicle management, of which we talked about today. We're going to do a deeper dive on that. We're going to learn how to leverage performance management. And I'm sure that you're thinking to yourself, what will I take away from the event that's going to improve my business? This is the kind of stuff. And then you heard Kelton, the conversations where you're networking with other people. Now, could you use another 25 qualified leads a month? Yeah. Hey, I can put so and so many calls on your board. This ain't one of those BS conferences. This is not based on what me and my team are planning on thinking about. No, this is the stuff that me and my team have used to build. Remember, I told you it's a $70 million electrical service only business. I'm not trying to flex on you. I'm just telling you from a guy that never finished high school. You can do this with the right strategies around the right people, and I want to do that to you. My promise to you is this, okay? If you attend this event and you feel like you wasted your money, you personally come see me, and I will give you a full refund of your ticket. What you paid, I'll give you a full refund. Even if you come to me on day 3 and say, wasn't worth it, Chris, I'm going to stroke you a check and I'm going to get it right back to you. I'm not going to argue with it. This is not going to be one of those conversations where I go, well, but, because I'm going to tell you either it was valuable or it wasn't. Now, because this event we offer is a retail, remember I told you we could easily offer it for $3,000. It's $14.97 a seat. However, because you're serious about your team and your business, we're actually offering that today for you at $8.97. $8.97 for a ticket. Are you kidding me? You can't get into any event. You can't get into any event for $897. Remember, well, Chris, why is the price so cheap? This is what it's going to cost me to have you in the room for 2.5 days. I'm asking you to cover your cost to be there. That's it. I'm not trying to turn a profit and make money on this. I'm trying to help you build and grow your business. So my question is, are you ready to accelerate the business? Do me a favor. Right now, my team is going to drop in the chat a link. Now, remember this. Yeah, you're right on that, Greg. If you'll take this link and click on it, I need you to understand something. This is a member event. So I do not have the ability to let just everybody that wants to attend and show up, show up. It'll only be for the first 25 people that say, yes, I'm in, you get a guaranteed spot. Everybody else will be a wait list. If I have fallout, you can show up. But know this, if you want to reserve your spot right now, go ahead and click the link and I'm going to get you the details. Once again, April 24th, 25th, 26th. It's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, half day on Friday. In addition to that, it's in Glendale, Arizona. You'll fly into the Phoenix airport. You'll stay in the hotel of which the event is at once you bought the ticket and you've registered. Then we're going to give you access to the room block to be able to purchase a ticket or to purchase a room to stay at our discounted rate. While you're at the event, breakfast and lunch is included for you. We also have Tuesday night, we have a welcome reception of which we pay for drinks. On Wednesday night, we have a cocktail reception. So all fun stuff. We're blue collar, don't have to dress fancy. Okay. Yes, if you're not a member, you can't buy a ticket. No, 100%. This is for a non-member. All of my members that are on right now, remember, this is included in your membership. If you're not registered, go ahead and get registered now. Our seats are filling very, very fast, okay? And so because that link is there, I want to make sure that you guys know from the very best of us at Blue Collar, I just want to say that I appreciate your time here today because I know that that's more costly than the ticket price itself. But I promise you it'll be the best ROI you've ever had. And if it's not, I'm going to give you all your money back. Because you made the commitment to you, your time, and your team and your success, I want to honor each of y'all for being here today. For those that took the step to reserve your spot already, listen, hey, me and my team are cheering you on right now, and we look forward to seeing you in Glendale. Your business is going to reward you for this, I promise, just because you took this step. And because of that, do me a favor. Get plugged into our social media, our YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, follow us. We got all kinds of tools and resources that we're always passing out, member or not. This is a membership community, but it's much larger than the membership. You're going to find they make you feel so freaking welcomed. In fact, many of our members that are with us, I consider to be very, very dear, close, personal friends of ours. So from the very best of us at Blue Collar to the very best of you, if you've got any questions because we're early, I'm gonna hang out and take those. If not, hey, this is the end for y'all. If y'all are hanging around, you can ask any question you want.
Hey, Chris,
Yes, sir. Hey, Bill.
question for you. We're going way back to the beginning where we were figuring out the labor rate. I understand it takes 15 minutes to put a breaker in, whatever it takes a certain amount of time to do a task. But is the 4 hour lost labor built into the warm up and the warm down with the client?
Yeah, 100%, Bill. So that's
And
that.
travel, of course.
Yeah, when we talked about that 50% efficiency, right? When we have that 50% efficiency built in, and that's why I said if you look at your billable hour, at minimum start at 50, but I have seen some businesses that are not even 50% efficient. Thank you for everybody that's bouncing. Thank y'all for the kind words. I'm forever grateful for your time here today. Does that help though, Bill?
Absolutely. I knew I was lucky to bill out 4 to 5 hours. It's a great day. But I just didn't know that's what the breakdown was because you do have the warm up, the warm down, and the task really isn't.
Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is selling time, right? That's
Yes.
what we refer to as selling time. Selling time's factored into that because what I'd say the selling time on a breaker, that selling time is very minimal compared to the selling time on in your case a compressor, right?
Right.
Selling time's way different. So that's why I try to do a general selling time as it relates to it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
If you're in Tampa next week, I'll see you.
I'm actually teaching that class, Bill. I will be in Tampa next week.
Uh-oh.
You
I
never
see
know
you then.
some folks from PA and some folks from Sarasota, Florida get together. Some good stuff's going to happen.
Well, last time I was in Florida, we had fun. So
Yes,
I'll
sir.
see you there.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Really quick, I had actually, let me back up. Holy smokes. I actually just got a message. Is CJ? CJ, are you still on the line right now? Perfect. Our team is going to work with you. If you can capture that, if you still are on, yeah, we can absolutely assist and answer those questions of what it looks like to become a blue collar member. Now, let me back up as well. I also had a question, Shannon, if you're not a member, I think I took that question. Yes, you can buy tickets. Once again, that ticket is $8.97 per person. That covers your seat for all of those days. I also got another question about a pool service company. Well, Kelly, I don't know what part of the country you're in, but pool service is something that's very common in my market. And you just started implementing pressure washing decks and screens via a subcontractor. What would be the best method to increase the rate the sub gives me for the customer? I think at this rate, Kelly, it's a different conversation to be had, but I'm not trying to create a complexity, but is this another line of business that maybe you should consider getting into to help flatten out some of your pool service? Kelly, are you still on right now? If so, if you'll just unmute yourself, I'll just take a conversation here. Thank you, Robert. Good to see you, brother. Kelly, do me a favor. I am going to, team, can you do me a favor? Drop my email address in the chat so that Kelly can grab that and shoot me an email. And Kelly will take that conversation offline. That's a really exciting conversation for sure. Anybody else, any questions for me? Hey, it's an open book. Thank you, Reardon. Good to see you, brother. I need to catch up with you, see what you're up to these days. Well, y'all are gonna sit around and stare at me, and I'm gonna sit around and stare at y'all if y'all don't have any questions, unless you guys want to bounce. I'm staying till the end. I was blocked until 6, so there you go.
My question to you, Chris, was what was the best picture from your wedding?
Okay. All right, Mr. Michael Reardon at my wedding. Yes, sir. Thank you. Dear friend of mine, I've known for quite some time. You guys may know his name, formerly with a software company, formerly now known as the new and improved Michael Reardon after taking 6 months off.
That was 21 months off.
Oh, 20.
I took a hiatus, found my next venture. This is not a sales pitch, but I will thank you. Starting early in my career when we were with Clockwork, Chris was always an individual that actually helped me, shared with me the numbers, why things worked, and has a lot to do with my success. So I'm proud to be on this, and I love seeing you shine, brother. You never disappoint, and I appreciate you helping the trades.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you, brother. Great, Shannon. Question: if you had guys buying wire of various sizes at supply houses, how did you charge for the wire to a PO when only small amounts were used? Okay, great question, Shannon. I seen you moved around, found you. Okay, cool. So one of the things that I would do there, Shannon, when you say small amounts of wires used, are you talking about either rolls of THHN or rolls of Romex? Is that, or a roll of MC? Is that kind of what you're talking? Okay, so those items were the one thing that, like, let me give you an example. I'm going to add a ceiling fan. I used 20 foot of 14.3. I'm not billing that out on that job. It's too granular of how many I use. And so what I did was I used that as a consumption item. When you get down to replace it, then I restocked it. It was just a cost of doing business. Now, on larger jobs where I've got wire pulls of service cable or grounding, or more importantly, like large jobs where a partial rewire, anything like that, I'm gonna account for all of that wire as rolls. So if they say, hey, it's probably gonna be 200 foot of 12.2, okay, I'm gonna bill it out at 250 feet, and I'm gonna use the whole roll and bill that whole roll as a part of the price of that job. Do you guys?
How did you keep track of it on PO in your PO system if they were going in and doing, say, a portion of the job that wasn't what you had figured in when they went out?
Perfect. So for me on that one, that would not be a job specific PO. It would be a warehouse PO. And the
Okay.
warehouse would be to the truck based on the consumption of the wire.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about job costing when it comes to that, Chris? How would you track and handle that?
Yeah, once again on that one for that wire, it would be one of those where if I'm borderline and I know that when I look at that job, let's just say it's a $1,500 job, and as a part of that, I added a dedicated circuit or a home run for a dryer, right? Like it's hard to compute. It's not worth that fruit is not worth the squeeze on that one, right? And then
Makes
what
sense.
I'll see is I can see, and then I can pull in a 12-month. How many POs have I pulled that were non-job specific that were for that warehouse? This goes back to every single one of my service trucks were set up as a warehouse, right? So every one of those is a rolling warehouse. They have their own truck stock, their own list, and I can see from a consuming standpoint, holy smokes, this one truck I've consumed 14 or 3 rolls of 14.3 in 12 months. No other truck in the fleet has done that. Red flag.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anybody else? For all my plumbers, though, pipe is not accounted for that way unless it's if I'm looking at like rolled copper. For pipe, I do try to account for that by the stick. So for those that are, I told guys, here's how that works, because I use pipe as well. If you use a foot off of that stick of pipe, you're going to consume a whole 10-foot stick of it. Keep it on your truck. Don't throw it away, but we're going to reorder a whole 10-foot stick, because if I get out there, I'm supposing I've got 60 foot of 1/2 inch schedule 40 on the truck, or I've got, 4 sticks of PVC on the truck, and you don't actually have 40 foot. You've got 15 feet, but it's in 6 different pieces of pipe. It's not the same thing. So pipe was another one of those types of consumables that if you consume anything off of the stick of pipe, reorder the whole stick. Anybody else? I like this. Same thing with Freon, by the way. Freon would not be the way. Freon, I would charge by the pound, and we're not going to reorder at the pound. I'll just know that there's going to be a deficit in that warehouse, and I would set it if Freon, if I kept 2 jugs of Freon on the truck, once I got below X amount that I had charged out of pounds, it'll automatically reorder just like you would in a warehouse to set mins and maxes. So if you'll set that warehouse at a minimum of, we keep 3 pounds of Freon. Once I've consumed everything down to 3 pounds, it's time to reorder. That doesn't include install jobs, by the way. Install jobs are not included. I did a whole nother process for install jobs. And for those that are excited about acceleration days, because you're coming, I'm going to dig deeper into this stuff. Like, this is going to be one of the topics that we're going to go deep on. And now that it's over, I'm not going to make you a bunch of vain promises, but I will tell you, we have a ton of new tools that we're rolling out at acceleration days around these topics.